It's estimated that 53% of high school athletes have sustained a concussion before participation in a high school sport. 36% of collegiate athletes have had a history of multiple concussions.
She was swimming with us, and she fell off of a bench in a locker room and hurt her head. And on the way home from there, she threw up in her car seat, and we were pretty sure that she had a concussion.
I had a couple when I was younger, but the one that really affected me, my last one, was snowboarding.
And so we took her up to the hospital, and they did a X-ray of her brain to make sure that she didn't have a skull fracture or anything like that, and she was fine.
I had one in high school playing soccer, and then I got this one snowboarding, and then I continued.
She probably had several what they call subconcussive blows playing on the soccer field.
I thought I was like better. I went back after my, they say like 2 weeks asymptomatic. I went back and I started like training and playing again. And it got like I started feeling like really horrible, and I didn't know why.
When your child calls you and says, something's wrong, I can't do the things that I used to do, I didn't understand how to do a drill that I've been doing since I was younger, it's scary.
I was very disappointed at that point because I couldn't play my spring season. It was already like a weekend, and I had to stop playing. But initially I was okay because I thought, like, you know, concussion, it'll be better in like maybe a month tops. But it was the emotional problems really came later when I couldn't get better.
Emotional side of the concussion long term, you have the emotional side short term, and you also have the emotional side of being treated. In other words, the treatment says you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. That makes people upset too.
But I think the hardest part for me, I was a very active person, was I couldn't work out at all. Like, I tried, and my symptoms would constantly come back and come back. So that was really hard for me to handle, not being able to be active.
300,000 sport-related traumatic brain injuries, predominantly concussions, occur annually in the United States. They are only second to car crashes among people between 15 and 24 years old.
Her first concussion happened was like the third week of soccer in September freshman year.
I don't remember. I know people have told me, but I don't really know what happened. I guess I was running back down the field, and some girl on the other team came and like totally flipped me over.
Her friend said, "Oh, Gabrielle fell really hard. Somebody knocked into her and she went flying through the air." Sorry, and she's smashed on the back of her head and her neck. And she said, oh, you know, she was laying there and people didn't think she was going to get up. Nobody saw her fall, and she got up and she started to go over to play again. And then one of the girls came up to her and told her to get off the field. And that's when she sat out for the rest of the game.
Next day I went to the doctors and they're like, you have a concussion.
People, oh, I got a concussion. You think, oh, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Well, I realize it's a huge deal.
I was out of school for like 2 weeks after that. And then when I went back to school, I went to some practices, but I really only went to the game.
It was an eye-opener. I learned so much now. That was 4 years ago, and since then she has had actually 5. So that first hit was really, really bad.
I played soccer my whole life from like kindergarten to freshman year, and then all of a sudden I just stopped my third game into high school when I was planning on playing for 4 years. It was tough.
Schools have put plans in place for students suffering from concussions.
The NCAA has mandated upfront concussion plans and protocols, and that someone experienced concussion be the evaluator and a single person be the clearer.
They are encouraged to immediately stop play, come off the field, whether it's practice or a game, regardless, immediately report it to an adult.
They come off, and the athletic trainer, who's usually there, can evaluate them and usually can identify it as the person having symptoms of concussion.
The ones that follow up with the students who are athletes who are concussed to get them back to play when they're symptom-free for a certain time period.
First thing is identification of the injury, can you identify what a concussion is? And then after that is how it's managed, what kind of accommodations are made.
Schools have helped students who suffer from concussions with new academic plans to help them succeed off the field.
Doctors were just saying they need a 504 plan, they need a 504 plan. So I met with the nurse and we talked about what we can do as far as addressing that.
The litigations that are starting to occur because of concussion make it mandatory that all the schools have a definitive plan.
I said, well, I would be happy to mentor the students who are concussed because we just went through this whole thing with Molly. And I really wanted something positive to come out of what she was going through.
Some kids are really very grateful that they have the accommodations in place because they just feel so awful. They like to know that they can just leave class and come and rest in my office.
It takes a lot of the pressure and the burden off of them. You know, they know that they have the extra time. They know that it's a common thing.
Sure, they have the concussion accommodations list, so they know what it is that their doctors do or don't want them to do. That gets shared by the nurse. I make sure they understand that.
Helps the parents too, because the kids are anxious, yes, but parents are very, very anxious about how it's going to affect their students in school.
Giving advice to parents who have emailed me or called me and said, I'm so frustrated, I don't know what to do to help. And I listen to them and I share some of the things that we would do with Molly.
And then when is it safe for the person to return? That all has to be part of the plan.
Fortunately, some kids heal very quickly, and so they are able to go back to full activity quickly. But regardless of how quickly you heal or how slowly you heal, every student who is an athlete has to go through the protocol to return to play with our trainer.
Everyone knows what concussions are now. 3 years ago, they didn't really know.
Concussions are life-changing for athletes, but not life-defining.
But the thought of playing this summer, I mean, it's still in hopefully the works with my doctor. But yeah, I miss it. I want to play again. My parents don't really understand it. It makes them nervous.
Since I've got my concussions, I started volunteering a lot more. And I realized I wanted to go into the field of health science and work with people who have suffered things in their life that they don't really want to happen.
She worked with a chiropractor, and that was the person who finally got her back on track. And what he basically said was that in the process of all of what was going on with her, she did have a concussion, but she also had some serious neck alignment issues. And once he started to align her neck, she started to experience great relief. So I think she wants to prove that it was more of the neck alignment issue than it was just a concussion.
So far, she hasn't had any long-term effects. You know, she gets headaches, but as far as her memory is fine. But college is going to be a challenge. I mean, she wants to be an occupational therapist. It's a hard field to begin with.
I want to be an occupational therapist, so that shows people who are born with stuff that they didn't plan on having, and I didn't plan on having my concussions, so, and help them get over stuff.
And I might be a little more cautious to head the ball or whatnot, but it's not as much of a competitive league, so I'll have that choice a little bit more. But I'm so excited to just play again.
I'm nervous if she wants to play soccer again because I know how she likes to play. You know, I don't foresee her backing away from things, but she's the best judge of that.
We'll say that I favor her now. But you know what? I mean, every child is different and they all have different needs, and she just has that need, and you know, it really hasn't changed the family dynamics.
She just graduated from college with a 3.97 grade point average. She even bested her mother. That was my challenge to her. She's made us very proud. She's worked really, really hard. Now that she's well, things are good, but it took her 3 years to really get back to herself.
Molly will be volunteering as a soccer coach at Newton High School in the fall and is currently homeschooling her chiropractor's children. Gabrielle is looking forward to attending Quinnipiac University in the fall studying occupational therapy.